So have you ever had one of those days? I've been awake since 5:30 a.m. I'm still running late for my morning. And it's not like the gods aren't looking kindly upon me. It's just the fact that them and the rest of humanity are co-conspirators in a plot. And I'm struggling. I've had a disturbed night with a teething baby. Child 1 has lost his book bag. The dog's vomited on my shoes. My beloved is still looking for a clean pair of pants in the laundry mountain. And so it goes on. Every single traffic light on my route is red. There are roadworks at every turning, as we know on this island. And I get to my first meeting, and I've got dripping wet hair, and the phone that I've forgotten to charge the night before. And so it goes like this, my conversation. Hi. Hi, morning, hi. Yeah, how are you? And I say, yeah, fine, thanks. As you do. And what I really want to say is, actually, I'm exhausted. I really want to crawl back to bed and stay there for the rest of the day. And I know that I'll inevitably spend my day rushing from one appointment to the next, and I'll be clock watching and juggling, and all the time trying to maintain some sense of professionalism and commitment and focus. And that's kind of what I really want to say, but I don't. And so it kind of leads me to my first point, really. And how many women can really say that they are truly thriving, regularly truly thriving? And this is something that I've kind of thought about a lot. So some of us have struggles. And those struggles come in a variety of different forms. But sometimes we hide that struggle beneath the surface. You know, like my very carefully choreographed dash through the day, it's hidden, it's buried. And, you know, for different women, this can be totally different scenarios, totally different circumstances. That was my morning with my family. But it's a struggle. There are moments of struggle. So why? Well, I have a background in biology. I've studied a little bit of psychology, and various other things. And so for me, for my own journey, I kind of had to do some research and to dig deep and to find some answers. I wanted to be a good wife. I wanted to be a good mother. I wanted to so many things in my life, and I wanted to be living my truth. So I started to think about this, and for me, it distilled to two different needs. One was by acceptance by other people, my need to be accepted by other people. And the second one was actually the difficulty that we have in accepting ourselves, our true selves, the bits that we hide. So acceptance by others. Let's look at the first issue. Acceptance by our tribe. Finding that we actually feel we have to meet the expectations of the people around us. And why do we have that need? We've heard so many times today, Peter was telling us, we are social animals. Humans are social animals. When our ancestors lived in tribes, there would have been a dozen eyes upon us as we woke up. And people would have been there to witness the highs and the lows of our life. They would have seen the joys of our milestones, the trauma of our grief, and they would have shared our daily routines. And there was nowhere to hide. And the thing is, if we weren't accepted by that tribe, we would reduce our chances of survival. The irony today is that modern women, as we've seen by previous speakers, modern families, we're probably more isolated than we have ever been before. The second issue, acceptance of self, a biggie. The challenge of a self-acceptance. When we're less vulnerable, when we hide that struggle, we lose touch with our true selves, with who we really are. So why is it so hard? Why do we hide it? Well, several different things here. The first thing is we actually have to know who we are. We actually have to know what we want in life. What is our true path? And that requires self-reflection. It requires a lot of asking questions, a lot of inquiry work. You know, Andre's mentioned the amount of self-development inquiry work that he did in order to find which direction he needed to go in. And the second thing is no matter what we find on that process of self-inquiry, is actually to have kindness and compassion to ourselves, to not beat ourselves up about it. I'd experienced these issues myself. And as I said, I thought about it a lot. And then I actually brave enough to have a conversation with someone about it one day. And my dear friend, Nikki Jenkins, I don't know if she's in the room today. There she is, waving. And we had a conversation. It was a pretty lengthy conversation, many cups of tea. But we started chatting about the issues that we faced as women. And, you know, Nikki and I are in practically in different situations in our lives. But there was commonality between some of the things that we were experiencing as women. And we were saying, well, actually, if this is common to us, it's probably common to heaps of other women too. And so we actually came up with this idea of launching a pilot project, an experiment. And it is genuinely an experiment. And it's a platform, really, for us to share some of the tools that we'd learnt on our own journeys, which we are still very much on, but also a way of sharing some of those tools and techniques, and also allowing women to share what they had to bring to the table about their journeys and their experiences. And so we call that Feminine Truth. And so that project is called Feminine Truth. And it's essentially a 6-week gathering program. So what we do is we get women together on a weekly basis to explore some of those challenges. And it started 4 weeks ago, and we have 2 groups. One are self-selecting members of the community, and the second are a group of women who've been recently diagnosed with breast cancer and gynecological cancers. And some of those are undergoing treatment, some have just finished their treatments. And so the question is, how do we explore those issues? First thing that we do, connection. It's all about connection. We've heard connection in so many different contexts. I actually started to write them down earlier, thinking I must mention this and this and this, but my list was too long. There are so many ways that connection has come up today. But connection with self was the first answer that I came up with. Deepening the connection with ourselves. And if we deepen the connection with ourselves, we can then deepen the connection with other people around us. And so the gatherings are really there to share our reflections on our own thinking, to share our experiences, to embrace vulnerability, like now. To listen, to truly listen without judgment. And when I say that, judgment of other people, more importantly, judgment of ourselves, not listening to that critic. Holding back on advice. It's really natural to want to help and offer advice, but, actually stopping and holding on to that. Simply holding the space for each other. And allowing space to talk if people want to. So to be able to share the highs and lows of our lives with openness and say, actually, you know what? Sometimes it's not fine. Thank you. And the second part was social connection. We've heard so many times before about how connecting with others is important in a variety of different contexts today. And the argument is clear to see in a growing volume of scientific studies. The therapeutic benefits of social relationships, huge, in dealing with addiction and depression, decreasing inflammation, a huge medical issue, reducing the risk of dementia, releasing stress-reducing hormones, to name just a few. We are wired for community, and if we disconnect from that, our bodies respond accordingly. But to connect with others, we first need to connect with ourselves. And we need to take time to really understand our own thinking and to really take time for ourselves. And this is where self-kindness came in. The need to simply take time to rest, to simply be, to nourish ourselves physically, emotionally, spiritually. And if we are, when we ask women, okay, fine, how have you shown how have you shown kindness to other people? They will not hesitate to come up with a whole list of things that they've done for others. But actually, when you turn that around and say, how have you invested time in yourselves? How have you been kind to yourself? It actually becomes a lot more difficult. The second tool for helping us connect with ourselves is self-compassion. It's really easy when we see other people suffering to feel compassion for them. What's more difficult is actually to turn that round. And sometimes it seems impossible to feel compassion for ourselves and for our own struggles. How often do we listen to that inner critic? How often do we judge ourselves more harshly than we would ever judge anybody around us? My youngest is kind of learning to walk at the moment, and our youngest. And, in that journey, as any of you would do, we accept that he's going to make mistakes. He will fall. He will fail many times over before he achieves true mastery of the process. But how often do we reflect on our own mistakes with the same level of compassion? I found it really difficult in the past to show myself kindness and compassion. But what made it much, much easier was when I started to appreciate the underlying neuroscience. I started to appreciate how we are wired. And that kind of gave me an understanding of where my thinking had come from. So, for example, front part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, the part that thinks about self, ourselves, is right next to the part that looks for problems. And really nearby are the parts that are associated with thinking of other people and memories. And so it kind of follows that the brain's natural default state reverts to what other people think of us. Humans are social animals. And actually, this whole process, it helps us navigate a social life. When we were part of tribes, that would help us survive and ultimately thrive. So if we raise awareness of thoughts and sensations that we have, it's much, much easier to see this and to appreciate this. And then finally, we do some work to kind of explore how we can express what we're feeling. And that's in a variety of different ways. It's not simply telling people how we feel. It may be through art, for example, as a medium. Key learning. It's peer-to-peer. Everybody is on an equal footing. One person to another. Everybody has something to offer and something to give. It's experiential. It's a truly immersive process. It's not about receiving information. It's about being and doing and being absorbed. And we hope that it will allow women to connect with themselves, to truly connect with themselves. So how's it going so far? Well, it's early days. It's only week 4. We're a really fledgling project, so thank you for listening. But we've had really positive feedback so far. It's a revelation to be given permission to actually like myself and put that before everything else. It has an amazing effect on my perspective. I hope I can remember to keep doing it. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Thank you for being here, sharing and creating this space for us. I got so much from the group last night and was buzzing. Thank you so much for facilitating the Feminine Truth gatherings. Last night felt very special, much food for thought, and above all, it felt right. Just what I need right now. I had hidden away from it a sense of relief and a sense of freeing myself from guilt for 20 years that it turns out was unfounded anyway. Just wanted to share. So, for me, this journey has revealed so much. It's allowed me to reflect on my greatest challenges and triggers in life. I've already shared some of my fears and shed tears with women that some of whom I'd never met before this project started. And it's developed an extraordinary sense of community and belonging within those groups. What I've learned is that actually, if women come together in community, we can collectively thrive. I'd really like to see this permeating different areas in our community. This approach of deepening social connection, whether it be frontline healthcare, or whether it be recovery, or whether it be improving educational outcomes. So what is my intuition telling me? It's telling me that connection to others and connection to our true selves might be the antidote to the challenges of modern life. Thank you.